everyone. Welcome to Triple T Thursday. That's Tips, Trick, Talktorials. Today we're going to be talking about a subject near and dear to my heart, which is networking for introverts. And I didn't even spell networking correctly, did I? Love that for me. How's it going out there? If you're out there, how are you? How is your night going? What is going on in your world that's new? Why is this completely not correct? There we go. And of course, the most important question, which also gets asked every week, I think it's the most important because I'm nosy, and that is, what's in your cup today, people? So I'm excited to chat with you about that too. Today, I think I still have some left. I do. I finally tried a new flavor of Liquid IV. It's the strawberry lemonade, and oh my goodness, it is so good. It might be my new favorite flavor. I did recently just try out it looks like, you know, those little rocket pops that you had during the summertime that had like cherry and lemonade and blue raspberry in it. They look like, you know, red, white, and blue little rocket pops. Oh my gosh. It tastes like that, but like if it were melted and then you drank it. You know what I'm saying? So you can taste a little bit of all the different flavors at different times. And it's an interesting, I don't know if it's a summer only limited edition flavor, but I thought that one was interesting. But today, Liquid IV, it's the strawberry lemonade, and FYI, I have a code for Liquid IV. It's not an affiliate code, it's just a coupon code. You save some money. I think it's like 25% if you use Shelly Saves a day. So if you want to try some, there you go. I also found out it's also sold now. Not only can you get it on Amazon, but you can get it on a lot of the time at Costco. So there's that. It's always fun seeing it different places now. All right, Pixel P is here. Coffee, and later. Ooh, first video back in 2 months. Wow, you must be feeling better. Props for you. Love that for you. That's great news. Speaking of like, oh shoot, I think that wasn't going to be right with my little earpieces and everything. That was a mistake. Because I have my little ears in. And I just put my necklace on over the ears. Hold on, we're gonna have to redo that. Yep. I put out a this is how you also know. I mean, if you needed any more proof that Shelly cannot be like a beauty guru, I put out a video on my beauty channel, of which I am now only 600 hours away from monetization. But I put out a video, and it's this really viral product. It's this cushion foundation, and everyone and their dog probably has made a video on this already. But I decided to make a video on it, and you can literally see me so confused during this first impressions and try on, where I'm like, is this color too yellow, too warm, too dark, and too light all at the same time? And I'm like, I'm at a loss for words. I'm genuinely confused. I don't understand this product. It was like, I'm so confused. And then I go out for a walk, and my husband is like, yeah, it looks really thick, and it's really noticeable, and it's really dark. And I'm like, yeah, because it also oxidized as you like left, and it developed and got deeper. And I'm just like, I'm so confused by this. I don't even have words. It was just not exactly what you want to hear from anyone trying to give you their impression of a beauty product. If you were perhaps also looking for opinions on said beauty product, it was the most probably unhelpful, confusing video, period. So, but I just thought I would share that with y'all, that was funny that I did that. Second, I did something, okay, so hear me out. You know, when I was like, yeah, stop worrying about the gear acquisition syndrome. Stop doing all this stuff. Blah, blah, blah. Downsizing. Blah, blah, blah. If you haven't seen it, I did a little unboxing. I did it, y'all. I did it for reasons unknown, okay? But I did it, and I got myself the little DJI Osmo Pocket 3, and I'm excited about it. I have this. Tell me if you know, where it's like you have your fantasy self and then you have like reality self. Fantasy Shelly is like, I'm going to do some vlogs. I'm going to make some videos. I'm going to do, you know, even some how-to tutorials, like how to use this thing. And then reality self is like, it's going to sit in this room for, I don't want that to be my reality. I actually want to be using it, but um, I was thinking like, oh, I'm going to be in like 2 weeks. We're going to Vid Summit. And I was like, okay, I'm going to need, I want to capture some memories, and I want to be able to say I actually have, some video footage of stuff. I'm going to be in New York and Pennsylvania. I was like, gosh, wouldn't it be great to have some footage of all this stuff? So my fantasy self is like, yeah, I'm going to capture all this footage. I still have this Sony camera, which I am trying to sell. So, I did list it. That's one step, but it's all funky. So if you know anyone who's trying to get themselves into a vlog camera, right? I am trying to sell this. I did put it on Marketplace, Facebook Marketplace. I am trying to sell this, and like some little mics and everything to go with it. Like it's a whole little vlog setup kit. But I was like, fantasy self is gonna use my vlog camera and get all this footage and maybe have like even a travel vlog. Reality one is like, I know I'm never gonna bring out that camera and bring around the extra batteries and do all this stuff. So I compromised and I said, well, what if it was a smaller camera? It didn't have all the extra doodads and dingleberry things and whatever. So I thought of it as kind of a in between. You know what I mean? I was like, okay, I won't use this. It's too cumbersome, but maybe I'll use this. Again, it's perhaps leaning into the fantasy self, but I really want to. I really want to. So that was my first thought when I saw your unboxing. I was like, what about the tech cleansing? I know. But you can't get it on Amazon because it seems to be like sold out a lot of the time. But I was on DJI's website, and it's like, if you order it by this date, if you order it today, you'll have it by like August 29th or, and I was watching the days like tick down into, and I'm like, okay, but Vid Summit's September 2nd or September 3rd. And I'm like, it's getting closer. I'm going to have to decide it's a go or it's not a go. And I just decided, I was like, you know what? YOLO, it's just, it could be that the fantasy self is going to come back with absolutely no footage, but like, YOLO. I don't want a camera with dingleberries. I don't. And speaking of, I only have literally about 2 weeks left. I have to show you all. I really am making progress. So last week I had one full boot completely done. This is the second boot. Okay, so even last night I was on TikTok doing some live, but like I've gotten all the way down through here. I've gotten pretty much through here. So this is all that's left. Once I finish this off, y'all, I will be, you can see, I am not that far off from complete. I just have to do this side of the boots, and then I will be good. So can we get a round of applause for me? Because I have been working. She's been putting in the time on this one, y'all. I've been putting in the time on this one. So now, what am I wearing to Vid Summit? Ask no one, but wow, that's a great question. Let me tell you. I've been stressing out about what I'm going to wear, and I've been stressing out about it a lot, y'all. And I'm just like, I went to the mall. It's like the bane of my existence, but I went, and I went into Macy's and I didn't find anything, and I went into like Nordstrom's and I shouldn't have gone in there because like the first dress I pulled off the rack was like $220, and I was like, oh my gosh, no. And I just put it back on the rack, and then I walked out of there. And I went into somewhere else too. So I went to like 3 stores, which is just unheard of for me, like Zara or somewhere. And I was just like, no, I went to Express, and I was like, I don't know exactly what the vibe is I'm going for, but I know that I haven't found it yet. And so I have decided that I went on Amazon and I just looked for like office dresses kind of, and I picked 2. One is in black and one is in red because I'm going to wear the boots both days. So I figured if it's safe if I wear the red dress with the black boots because the little red logo, and I wear the black dress with the red boot or black and red boots. Yeah. So I bought 2 dresses off Amazon. It's the exact same dress. It's the exact same dress, just 2 colors of it. And I put it on and I was like, it's a little thin. Amazon, I don't know how it's going to do underneath like the bright lights and all that stuff. But you know what? I had to make a decision. I'm like, it is what it is. So let's hope that when I'm wearing the dress that it's not super thin and see-through when I go up on that stage. So there's that. And it's just good to have that decision off my plate, because I was also feeling quite bad about myself. I went into all those dressing rooms. I put on like the dresses and stuff, and I thought I'd looked awful in all of them. I'm like, no, I am too emotional and too fat for this right now. I can't do it. So I hightailed it out of there, and I was just like, I can't deal with this right now. So what's yours at a discount? I don't know what store you have there. I bought 3 t-shirts how do you buy 3 t-shirts for $0 last week? Oh, $9. Okay. I was like, what? Anyways, so I bought my 2 dresses, and I will finish my boots, and we're going to call it a day. You know what I mean? We're going to see how it goes. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about networking for introverts. And one of the reasons this was on my mind was because VidSummit is coming up. And if you know me, I don't really like talking to people a lot of the time, but I do it in short concentrated bursts at things like VidSummit, and they only happen once a year, which is probably why I can't go to a whole bunch of other conferences, because I am mentally, emotionally, and physically drained, after that, because it's like one big family reunion, and then like everyone goes away, which is how you like it, and you see them once a year. So I was thinking about this, and you're like, to make the most of an experience like VidSummit or anything like that, or I was thinking about some of the relationships that have come out of VidSummit that have led to, I don't know, conversations or relationships or opportunities or just tons of different things that have come down the pike because of things like VidSummit, VidCon, and just networking in general. And how do you do that when you are someone who, as a lot of the time as a YouTube creator, we stay at home, we talk to a camera, we pretend we're talking to a real person on the other end of it, and then feel socially awkward and inept when you go out into crowds, right? And that's how I feel. It's like people might see and be like, oh, you don't seem, but I am always in my head being like, oh, that was awkward. I'm awkward. I am awkward. That interaction is awkward. I don't know how not to be awkward, and I don't know what that person was expecting of me when meeting me, but I'm pretty sure I didn't meet the bar. And that's kind of like where my head is at a lot of the time when I'm thinking about these things. So I want to share with you a few things about networking in general, but how I try and attempt to do it when I do go down to those types of things. It's definitely something that stresses me out. It's something that I have to consciously think about and really work through, because if I only see people once a year, I don't want it to be like a bad experience either, right? I don't want it to be like, oh, they were really standoffish. They didn't want to talk to people, or they didn't want to talk to me, and anything like that. So let's hold on one second here. Let's make sure we're live. And this is the dun 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 dun. Let me make sure that we chat. Where's chat? There we go. And then we're going to flip. Okay, and then we're going to, that's not what we want. Second here. I'm thinking. That's not it. Straight eyebrows. Interesting. Okay, so let's talk about this a little. Oh, I have a bottle of hand sanitizer from People of Video in my car's console. You know what though? Even that could be an icebreaker. So here is tip number 1 is maybe you want to have some sort of go-to or an icebreaker or some reason that you might want to actually go up to people and chat with them, right? So I am someone who can get nervous, and so when I want to think about how I would approach people, which is like my nightmare. And actually what's even worse than that is when I was like at the booth when I had to work at TubeBuddy. I had to stay stationary and have the people descend to the booth. That was that is my worst nightmare. It's like I can't escape. People are coming here and I have to like be on and perform during that time. Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. And by that time too, I had pretty much lost my voice and I still had to speak and do my presentation at Vid Summit. I remember just being like so petrified. And then I was inside of my head that entire time being like, oh my gosh, people are going to think that I don't want to talk to them, which true, but I don't want to make anyone feel like that. But they're going to be like, you know, she was rude or standoffish or she didn't want to talk to us or anything like that. And I am like, no, I literally can't talk. I literally have no voice. But if you can create like a short list of things that you might have to talk about, or you know, even if it's something generic as like some go-to questions or icebreakers that you might have when trying to approach someone else. It could be something you always have in your back pocket, you know, like, oh, do you have a YouTube channel if you're at some sort of conference like this, you know, or, you know, if you notice something about their clothing and you say, wow, I really enjoy like your cowboy boots. And, you know, you say something like that. That was always like a really easy way to kind of like break into it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm loving like your little, your leather jacket. It's so cool. Something like that. It seems like so benign, but if you think about it, you're almost always trained to be able to spot something in someone else or on someone else or gear they're carrying or anything like that. Anything that you can quickly visually see and like kind of patch onto and just like cling to for a second. You can always be like, hey, I really enjoy your, whatever. Or if someone's coming up on like crutches and a little knee wheeler thing, you know, oh my gosh, how did you hurt yourself? Or, you know, or like, oh my, you know, there's tons of different things like that. And that also harkens back to the days when we used to sell like consumer electronics. There would be tons of things they would be like training you to be looking for at the time, right? It was like, it could be anything from, it's mainly anything that you could see visually. Like if they were carrying a purse, if they were walking in on crutches, if they were, you know, some article of clothing that they were wearing, the t-shirt, it was a specific band. There were a million different things that you could talk about just by them walking up to you and then like you noticing something about them and then giving them acknowledgement as a compliment. So that was one of the things that we were like taught to look out for when we were when we were there. So something like that is really easy to do. And then there's still like a series of like really easy open-ended questions. What brings you in today? Or, you know, like, how's the weather out there? Which seems so stupid too, right? To be like, how's the weather? But it's stupid stuff like that because a lot of the time when you are at these social interactions, you're going to end up doing very surface level conversations for most people. And you think of yourself like a host at a party. That's the way I think about it, is that you have these very short interactions that are surface level that you might be repeating the same things to people, but they also don't know that because they flit on and you flit on to the next conversation. And it's interesting because I saw this happening at one of the vid summits. It was probably 2018, 2019. And I was sitting on a chair next to a friend of mine. And this kid walked up to him and asked him like a very specific question, like, so blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, and then went on to the next question. And then it was really interesting because then he like turned to me, someone who also like he didn't know. And he said the exact same questions. And I was like, you just asked this. But it was obvious that he was like shy, younger, and then going off a very specific list of questions that he had prepared for himself to be able to spout when interacting with anyone. In that particular case, I might say maybe you want to have more than two, and maybe you want to change the order in which you might say them because the person who is sitting next to the person that you were just talking to overhears it and they're like, oh, it's not quite the same. Yes, I will be at Vid Summit. Yes, I'll be there. I will definitely be there. And we're talking about, some networking and tips for introverts like myself. So picking up on items of clothing that they're wearing or something visually that you can cue off of, talking about benign things such as like the weather or, like why they happen to be at this conference. It's like super easy, right? Because like, why are you at Vid Summit? Blah, blah, blah. How long have you had a channel? Do you have a channel? Do you, or like, what's your favorite platform? Really easy one, right? Because it's an open-ended question that allows them to talk. And a lot of the time, with a lot of content creators and people in this field, they all love to talk. And introverts, you don't really have to do that much work. You can be like, oh my gosh, that t-shirt is really cool. Tell me about that. Have you seen that band? Or like, where have you seen them play? They will go on for an hour and you don't have to say anything, which is glorious. And at that point, you can just be like, oh my gosh, it's so great to run into you, and then flit on to the next, right? And that's another thing is like, you should always have some sort of like exit plan in place, because one of the things that makes it awkward is when you just stand around and you literally have run out of questions to talk about, and you're just like standing there like, which one of us is going to acknowledge how awkward this is and then leave this conversation first? So you should always have something like, oh, I'm going to run to the bathroom, or like, oh, I'm going to go grab a snack, or, like, oh, and my husband and I very much have a something where I'm like, oh, the dogs have been in puppy prison for a really long time. We should probably go check on them. It really just means I want to go home. I've been here long enough. I want to go home is, oh, we should, we should probably check on the dogs. They've been in puppy prison a while. That is my, I want to go home card right there. So we have some generic questions, right? We've got some visual cues that we've got off. We've got time, place, weather, all of that stuff, all those questions that you can bring up. Now, those are all a lot of the time for people that you may not know that well, or just kind of on the peripheral, periphery. Now, if you have people that you do know, oh my gosh, here's one of the things that you can do. Make sure, because if you're an introvert like me, you probably have replayed the conversation you've had with that person for years. Oh my gosh, I said something stupid. Oh my gosh, I said this and they said this. Point in case, I remember I walked up to Peter McKinnon last year at Vid Summit, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I met you at 2018 Vid Summit and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I have no memory of that. And I'm like, I wasn't expecting you to, but, but it's one of those like, but it meant something to me. Introverts and people such as that usually have a pretty good memory of an interaction that they've had previously with someone. And if you can recall that to them, maybe not so much in Peter McKinnon's case, but for a lot of people, they will be impressed or be reminded of that interaction because you can remember it, if that makes sense. So if you say, oh my gosh, the last time you were here, a kid threw Sour Patch Kids at you on the stage because it's your favorite candy. So I made sure to go raid all of the candy dishes here at Vid Summit, and I found the Sour Patch Kids, and I'm giving them to you before your panel. If you're not Peter McKinnon and you're someone else, it might be one of those moments where you're like, whoa, like, you remember that? You're like, yes, because I replay all of those memories through like all of the interactions I categorize with people. So you can have stuff like that where you can do memory recall and say, wait until you're in your 60s. You can bring that back and be like, oh my gosh, the last time I saw you, and I've said this to people too. I'm like, oh my gosh, the last time I saw you, we were talking about blank. And, how did it ever go with that? And a lot of times, I would say 3 out of 5, because I don't know. I don't want to say 4 out of 5. And I can't say 5 out of 5 because Peter kind of like killed it for me. They will be not only impressed, but they'll be like a little bit like touched that you remembered that about them. So I do kind of file that away in my brain about something that I can talk about with each of the people that I've met. Right? So if it was something like I'm meeting Pixelpia for the first time or something in person, I'd be like, oh my gosh, did you bring your cowboy boots? Because, I remember you bought your very first pair and you have very small feet and you got a kid size. And, I was excited to see you in cowboy boots. Are you going to wear them too? Are you matching me? Is an easy interaction because I remember that one time when Pixelpia was like, oh my gosh, I bought cowboy boots. You see what I'm saying? Or if you say something like, oh my gosh, Adam, if I'd known you had been here, I would have brought you Poland Springs water because that's what you drink every Thursday. Something, easily like, it's an easy interaction when you've got something like that because you have a memory of the way that you've interacted with them before. And for some people, it could be harder than others to remember. And for some people, you can do different things. I know people that will put it in their notes. So they might have a list of like the people that they've met. I know it sounds silly, but then like interesting tidbit about that person. And this also happens when it comes to networking, when you need to reach out again, especially if it was something previously in sales and cold calling and stuff like that. If you remembered like, oh my gosh, your kid is like Stephanie and they just graduated from high school. They're going off to San Diego State. How's that going? How's being, home alone without them? Do you miss them like crazy? And then they're like, usually they're not going to the route of like, oh my gosh, this guy is a stalker. They're going to be more like, wow, they really took the time to remember and care. And when in reality, it might just be like the fact that you're in their phone as like, last time we talked, they mentioned that their kid was graduating, going to San Diego State University, right? So there are different things like that happen. When something happens, you can catalog and then just, if I know that I'm going to be going to Vid Summit, I'm going to see a lot of the same people, right? So I could go through my list and be like, oh yeah, the last time we talked about this, the last time. And so I'm typically am pretty good at remembering, hey, the last time we talked about this, we talked about you launching your email newsletter. How did that go? What happened with that? And again, a lot of the time people will love to talk about themselves. So they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you remember Brianna just went off and I can't believe she's not here and we don't know what to do with ourselves and all this time, all of that stuff, right? And that is memorable and it will stick out and it will make you, one, feel better like you had a good interaction with people, and two, it will make them remember you, hopefully, for the future. So that is something, because a lot of the time with networking, it is a repeated interaction, touch type of situation before you ever, and sometimes never, get this payday of interaction, recognition, whatever. But it could just be a general feeling of like goodwill. They remember you, something sparks one day when they're like, oh my gosh, who was, talking about video editing or something. And they're like, oh, that one girl, right? That could be you. You could be that one girl is what I'm saying, right? So I would definitely remember when we talked about that. Exactly, right? Yes, absolutely. So shouldn't be eating fast food, but McDonald's are charging for a cup of ice water. Oh, really? Even with purchase, guess I need to bring my own water. Interesting. So, or imagine I walked up to you and I was like, hey, Adam, here's a $5 gift card for the next time that you're at McDonald's. You can buy yourself an ice water. They shouldn't charge for that anyway. If, like weird little tidbits like that you remember from an interaction with someone would hopefully like be one of those like, whoa type of moments. And for someone who is, let's say, like an introvert or someone who doesn't like go out of their way to talk to people, usually doesn't mean that we're not very observant. And so when you observe stuff like that, you can totally, catalog it or notate it and then refer back to it or, call back to it later, which is kind of that thing is it's a callback. And so it might be harder for people who like go out and talk to everyone, but like maybe a little bit, maybe this is one of those times where it's good being an introvert because we're usually very observant and willing to kind of recall those things and let the people talk about themselves versus like going out and being boisterous about all the things and accolades that you've done. Hey, buddy, you coming to see me? Where are you? He's in here somewhere. He's in here somewhere, y'all. I know you can hear him. So, yeah. I'm giving you all my secrets here, y'all. This is all the stuff. Now, the other things are, time is going to pass, but it seems like time doesn't pass. What do I mean by that? So it seems like Vid Summit 2023 was like yesterday and last year all at the same time. So here I am remembering that it's happening in 2 weeks. And then I'm like, oh, dang, some of these people I haven't seen in a year. And sometimes one of the worst things that you can do is walk up to someone and be like, hey, you're famous now. Can I get something from you, right? Or it's like, oh, it's a problem. Or I need something from you. And sometimes, 4 or 5 years later, all of a sudden now it's like, you only love me because I'm popular. That's what I'm saying. You don't want to have that kind of reputation. So you want to have these like small little micro interactions with people over time as you're starting to get to know them and grow that relationship, right? Because a lot of people think that it's transactional when it comes to that relationship, and like you get as much as you can right away without any regard for like the future and longevity. And I think smarter people, and sometimes introverts, they play that long game because they remember a year later about the cowboy boots, or they remember about Brianna going off to college, or they remember things about, the conversation about why McDonald's shouldn't be charging for ice water if you're making a purchase already, right? And if you're not making those notes or whatnot, but it also should be a lesson that maybe it needs to be more than once a year that you're actually seeing some of these people or interacting with them, because then it starts to feel performative in nature, where you're like, I'm saying hi to you because I see you once a year, as opposed to, I was just thinking about this. I was like, wow, I haven't talked to some of the people who are going to be there in a year. So, you can reach out via text. I don't need anything from you. I'm just saying hello. I'm just saying hi. I'm checking in on you. Or if I know that they're going to the event, can't wait to see you in a couple of weeks, or like in a few months. And for some people, those little micro touches like that can be especially helpful, because then you feel more familiarity and you feel friendlier with the people that you are doing that with, and when you see them. Then another thing about building these little micro relationship pieces is that when you do see them, right, you spend the time and be in that moment with them, invested in them. You're making eye contact. You're not constantly looking around for who is the next person, the bigger, better thing that can, elevate you, or like make you look more popular or anything like that. And I think a lot of people, especially at conferences like this, they get a little weary of like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired of people needing things from me. I'm so people like using me for something. I don't know if people are trying to reach out because they need something from me or not. So just as like a small example, my friend Emily, she's had this huge rise, and she's so popular on YouTube now and live streaming, and I definitely look up to her. But I also consider her my friend. But it's so funny is it took us 3 years, I think, to ever get a photo together, just because we never got around to it. And that's fine. But imagine like it was year 1 and I'm like, oh my God, I have to get a photo. Let me post it everywhere and let everyone know that I met you, or that like that serves this wrong thing, because I don't need to have those interactions to know that like we're friendly. I don't need to post the proof of it just so that other people can think that we're kind of like friends. And I feel like people miss that because they're so, again, into their fantasy selves of, if I post a picture with someone who is famous, people will think I am famous. I will have some of that fame and notoriety by extension. I am, whatever. When it's just the wrong way to think about it, because then it becomes this performative and transactional thing. Like, oh, I came to this conference. Let me get a photo with you so I can post it. And that's not exactly, it doesn't make probably the other person feel good if it's just like, oh, we took a photo. Okay, now I'm going to ignore you for the rest of the conference. And so I remember last year was the first year I finally got some photos of people, because I was just like, y'all, if you see me, remind me to take a photo, because I am awful at this. I am awful at getting a photo. And we still weren't great, but it was still one of the first conferences where I finally had a couple photos to look back at and be like, oh my gosh, I got to meet up with these people, got to see them, I got to hang out with them, and I have a memory, of it in digital form. So I don't think it's bad that you go up and you try and find people that you want to interact with, but I'm saying, when it comes to networking, you should know that sometimes it's going to be for the long haul, and it's not just clearly small and transactional. So I guess I wish I could get that through some people's heads, because I think when you're younger, you don't really think about it always the same way. You just kind of think about what looks good right now, or what could I post, or what me, right? It's just a little more selfish in nature. And so I would say one thing about networking, a lot of the time too, for introverts, just because I take a photo with someone doesn't mean I necessarily need to post it someplace publicly. And I feel like, a lot of the times it's the whole like pics or it didn't happen. Pics is one thing, but it's like pics that are posted on social media or it didn't happen is like this whole other thing. And another, just as a survival tactic, I'm going to say, I remember I was at VidCon It was like the end of day 3. And I was like, I went to the little cafeteria thing in the hotel and I was like, I've been networking with people for 3 days and I hate people. I'm an introvert type special. And they're like, 1 pizza, 2 sodas coming up. And I was just like, oh my God, someone who gets it. But one thing that it did remind me, there was like this party that night and I was zonked. I couldn't do it. I was like drained. And my friend actually reminded me, like, you know what you should do if you can at lunch when you know, maybe not if you're MC and working in a room, but like go back to your room and take a nap. Stop interfacing with people. Like get away from people, which may seem counterintuitive. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm here. It's the only time I'm going to see them. I'm going to like interface as much as I can. And she was like, no, sometimes when especially like if I know I have to speak or if I'm going to be on a panel, anything like that, like, and I don't want to be distracted, or it could be 15, 20 minutes of just closing my eyes, zonking out, having an alarm, making sure that, you know, obviously I still am going to where I need to be. But they're like, you have no idea what a quick power nap is going to do for your energy levels. And I was like, that is brilliant, because it is true. Like I start the day with the best of intentions, but I get tired because it's like, if you've seen the spoons theory, right? You have so many spoons in a day and each interaction of energy takes. And so when you're depleted, you're just like empty and like walking around as a shell of yourself. And so how do you deal with that or prolong your spoons or whatnot? And that is one of them, is like, maybe you need a quick cat nap. Maybe you need to step away. Maybe you need to hang out with someone who also is similar to yourself, where you can both just kind of sit around in silence. And I've had that before. I was at a girl slumber party, and I was peopled out, y'all, and we still had another day to go. And so I went into this other room where there weren't a lot of people, and I sat down by the window. And then this other girl who's kind of the same came in and sat down by the window. We sat next to each other on our phones, didn't talk for at least 30 minutes. Good 30 minutes. And then afterwards, it was about time to go to sleep. And I just kind of got up and I was like, thanks. And like, we just sat there in silence. And we had relayed that story to someone the next day who was very much an extrovert and people person. And they were like, again, like, you just sat next to one another. You didn't talk to one another. You just ignored each other. And we both looked at each other and were like, yep. And it was great. And like, what you're doing now, not as great. And there's a lot of like talking that you're doing. And see, you can't do that. You can't sit with us. You can sit with us if you're going to be quiet, but you can't sit with us if you're going to ask all these questions. And so sometimes if you can surround yourself with some people who are very similar to you in that regard, and you all need some downtime together, you can recharge while ignoring each other. And it's totally okay. It's totally okay to do that, to take some time away, to go take a power nap. But when you are ready to come back and be talking with people, again, think about the talking points, think about the short, quick interactions, think about the callback and reviewing of the notes that you have, think about the quick visual cues that you can pick up on, and never forget the fact that a lot of these people just want to talk about themselves. So give them an open-ended question and let them go off to the races. You can literally stand there and just, oh yeah. And active listening and reflective listening skills are definitely a thing that will show that you are listening to them. And, you know, if you're saying back okay, so what I hear you saying is, oh, wow, that's so neat that you, whatever. Those types of things make the other people feel like you really are listening. So it's helpful. Do those things. And then, you know, deepen those relationships and networking over time. There's a whole saying about how net worth is about your network. And I do honestly believe that to be true. There are so many opportunities that I've gotten because of people that I know, people talking about me when I'm not around in a good way, because of interactions or just the reputation that I've built up with them. And those types of things are important. And I would really encourage you all, even though creation is this lonely, weird thing that we all do, there is a shared experience that many of us all still have. And there's still something fundamentally human about what we do, which is we sit down and try to educate, talk to, empathize with, inspire, warn other humans about things, experiences, products. And that's at the end of the day what we're doing. And so when we break it down to its base parts, we're all doing these things. And so it's not as scary. And I think another thing is, again, to think of these relationships as non-transactional and long in longevity or the potential, and not think about them from this, what can I get from this today? How can I do it to benefit me? Because I think a lot of people, the bigger that they get, the more wary they become of people who only want to talk to them for what they can get out of it, and not because anyone is genuinely interested in getting to know them as a person. And I think that a lot of the time we don't do a very good job in connecting with other humans about anything and of a personal level. And I know I said keep it surface level, but I'm saying over time, after you dig a little deeper and get out of the surface, I think at the end of the day, we're all genuinely people trying to connect with others and have others understand the experience and thoughts and feelings that we also have as well. So a lot of the time we're just looking for similar, or people to empathize or sympathize with that whole interaction. So comments, questions, concerns, things, your best networking tip, anything like that, share it with the group. I have a difficult enough time remembering names. I enter notes in my phone. You know, it's so common. A lot of the time, if you were to create a contact in your phone and not even put a phone number, but you have a visual cue or some sort of reminder of the merch guy, and, he's like, or the guy at this company. And then in the notes section, putting the different notes about that's the easiest, cheapest CRM system you've got. I know people who actually just put in notes as well, and then they just move around the section for each person and kind of do it alphabetically, and then just kind of scroll their list and kind of go through it and be like, oh yeah, the guy at Coca-Cola, he blank, 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 and writes these things down, right? So it totally happens. It totally happens. So other comments, questions, concerns that we have. Do you have any networking events that you're coming up against in the next few weeks? Like I said, I not only have Vid Summit coming up, but then I have this family reunion, and it's a lot of people that I've never met before. I do get a lot of anxiety and just have a lot of general nerves around meeting a lot of people that I don't know, hanging out with people that I don't know. So it's definitely something that's been on my mind a lot recently, because I'm going to have to do so much of it soon. So I did want to share that with y'all in case any of that could possibly be helpful for you all. All right. Well, I'm really glad that y'all were here. And now you also know a little bit of insight into how I would cliff note or categorize something for an interaction that I would have with you in person. And how my brain works. And also just know, if you meet me and I'm totes awkward, even though I've been talking to you for years online, it's nothing you've done. I'm just literally totes awkward. Can't do anything about that yet. I'm working on it, okay? I'm working on it. Maybe I'll need to watch back this video again. But yeah. Anyways, I hope y'all have such a great night, and thank you for hanging out with me, and I appreciate your time. Check in on your people that you are networking with for no other reason than to just say, hi, how are you? Checking in, not because you need anything. And the next time you're at an event, maybe after you take a nap, try some of these and let me know how it goes. All right? Have a great night, y'all. Bye.